It is a land of enormous energy. Whales and dolphins interacting. Paddle wheelers churning along outback rivers. Windsurfers zipping across island lagoons. It is Australia, the island continent. Washed by stunning surf on its coastlines. Baked by record droughts in its harsh outback. From its dazzling carpets of wildflowers to adventures in the high country and islands of phenomenal beauty. Australia, the barrier reef visible from outer space. And its outback centred around a magnificent red rock. Come explore this stunning continent. Australia, a big country with a big heart. It has been described as the jewel of the South Pacific. An island of phenomenal beauty. Centred around two enormous ethereal volcanic peaks. Washed by a crystal clear coral lagoon. Enveloped in lush rainforest that stretches from ocean shores to its highest peaks. It is Lord Howe Island. A tiny slice of paradise 2 hours flight east of mainland Australia in the Tasman Sea, well on the way to New Zealand. This was once a place of refuge for whalers who'd stock up on food and water. The first European sighting was in 1788 when a British Lieutenant, Henry Lidgebird Ball, named it after the First Lord of the British Admiralty, Lord Howe. It's since gone on to become World Heritage listed, with the number of residents and visitors limited. As desirable a location as it is, visitor numbers are restricted to 400. The permanent population is even less, 250. And signs of human occupation are well camouflaged by the subtropical rainforest, which is all-pervasive. Living in paradise comes with a hefty price tag. Food and supplies have to be shipped in once a fortnight from the mainland. The island's only jetty becomes the scene of a military-style operation as locals assist in unloading. Once the supply ship departs, the jetty becomes a place of recreation. Kayaking is popular here too, an opportunity to paddle across a stunning lagoon filled with vibrant corals in a formation that sits well south of the Great Barrier Reef. Such fertile waters attract big schools of fish. At the island's Neds Beach, feeding schools of fish is a popular pastime. Visitors wade into these sparkling waters with a handful of fish feed to lure the fish to the shoreline. Lurking nearby is one of the island's larger creatures, a solitary shark. This loner patrols shallow waters in search of smaller fish to catch. Exploring these same waters are snorkelers. They're swimming over a coral reef that is further south than any other reef in the world. The coral here is still bright and healthy, untroubled by warmer waters to the north, which have been affected by higher temperatures and coral bleaching. On land, most visitors get around by pushbike. Vehicle numbers are limited, and the island's easygoing pace lends itself to a much more old-fashioned way of transport. Exploring by foot is also a well-accepted means of getting around, especially in the abundant rainforests. Kentia palm trees blanket Lord Howe Island. While the mighty banyan tree looms large, with their roots dropping far and wide. But it's the volcanic peaks of Mount Gower and Mount Lidgeberg that truly inspire, even when shrouded in smoke haze from mainland bushfires. They're the remnants of a volcano that erupted some 7 million years ago. In fact, the Lord Howe volcanoes were part of a chain of volcanoes that stretched deep into the Pacific. What the Lord Howe group of islands sits on is a plateau that rises 4 kilometres from the sea floor. At 875 metres tall, Mount Gower is a real challenge for the more adventurous traveller. This is rated as one of Australia's toughest climbs, a near vertical ascent that takes up to 4 hours to reach the peak. Climbers need to go with a certified guide because it is a strenuous effort that crosses cliff faces. Once they've scrambled skywards, climbers are rewarded with breathtaking vistas. The vegetation at these heights is markedly different, with 2 new species of palms. And for much of the year, the summit is shrouded in cloud, providing rainwater to one of Australia's lushest locations. The same forces that have created Lord Howe Island have moulded another geological wonder nearby. Ballas Pyramid. Nobody lives on this near vertical formation. In fact, climbing is banned. So, to get there, visitors need to travel by boat. This catamaran, the Cut Loose, is being sailed from Lord Howe Island across the barren face of Mount Gower as it plunges into the ocean. It's a sail across 20 kilometres of sea. From out of the ocean, the sliver of rock that is Ballas Pyramid rises abruptly. So abruptly that it is the tallest volcanic spire in the world. It rises 562 metres out of the water, and yet is only 1,100 metres long. Other smaller formations, such as Wheatshift Rock, lie close by. But it is Ballas Pyramid that is the standout formation, home to thousands of seabirds, and viewed in awe by the occasional sailors who make it out to this very remote part of Australia. The Great Southern Ocean is a relentless force. Flowing from the Antarctic, its powerful waves pound mercilessly on the rocky shores of the Great Australian Bight. Sightseers can grasp a sense of the power from this lookout, which hangs perilously over a few hundred feet drop known as the Gap, near Albany in Western Australia. Here there's an unrivaled view of this geographic curiosity. A sheer cliff face towering over a raging surf provides a dramatic visual finale to a remote and extraordinary corner of this vast continent. These same waters have been the pathway for one of the world's most extraordinary migrations, the annual pilgrimage of the southern right whale. These days, there are some 10,000 of these baleen whales in the Southern Ocean. They've been feeding in Antarctic waters and have now swum north to the West Australian coastline. It is one of the world's longest mammal migrations and one of nature's great success stories. Having reached the Australian coastline, they'll take a rest. For this solitary whale, taking a rest means meeting new friends. Dozens of bottlenose dolphins swim in, sharing the water with their newfound monster-sized mate. It's an interaction that lasts several hours. The dolphins also enjoy the surf in these parts. Dancing the waves is quite a performance. Diving, swimming and rocketing out of the ocean like a ballet dancer in mid-twirl. For the dolphins who reside here, it's a life of eternal surf, where every day provides another break. Conditions in this remote corner of southwestern Australia are also a big draw for surfers. Many are towed in by jet ski, setting them up for the perfect ride. The power of the surf is legendary in these parts. It just keeps on giving. It is a floral spectacle like nowhere else on Earth. For 5 months every year, from June to October, Western Australia blossoms with carpets of dazzling wildflowers. With more than 12,000 species, This is the biggest wildflower display in the world. 60% of these flowers can only be found here. A natural display that attracts avid photographers from all over the globe. What they're exploring are the vast outback plains of the Pilbara, the goldfields and Coral Coast, a region that comes alive once a year, decorating what has otherwise been a dry terrain. Just how dry can be experienced in the riverbeds of the district known as the Coal Seam Conservation Park. Riverbeds that often go years without any flow of water. Coal Seam is a pocket of wilderness that reveals 250 million years of geological history. A semi-arid park that is nevertheless washed in a sea of annuals and perennials for this special time of year. The vibrant colours on display are as diverse as the species, with pinks, whites and yellows dominating. This and the surrounding terrain are wildflower hotspots. It's been defined by the World Wildlife Foundation as one of the most ecologically significant areas in the world. Due to the high number of rare and endangered species here. And the reason for this? It's isolation. Cut off from the rest of Australia by vast surrounding deserts and oceans. The wildflowers of Western Australia. Mother Nature's floral wonderland. Another colourful landmark in this part of the world is the Pink Lake. The official name is Hutt Lagoon, a saltwater lake close to the ocean near the city of Geraldton. The lake takes on a pink hue as the result of an algae that proliferates here. The Pink Lake is becoming very popular with tourists, especially the Chinese visitors who book charter flights for an aerial view over this natural phenomenon. Another collection of Mother Nature's formations is the Pinnacles. Thousands of weathered limestone pillars cover the yellow sand, some standing twice as high as their human visitors. The pinnacles in this moonscape come from seashells from an earlier era that was rich in marine life. It is indeed a unique geological formation. which visitors can explore by car or foot. Close by, the stunning effects that a river has when it cuts through sandstone. The river is the Murchison, the lower 80 kilometres of which has carved through the red and white sandstone of this region to form the Kalbarri gorges. The cool, refreshing waters of the Murchison stand in contrast to the harsh sandstone cliffs. This rugged and relatively secluded terrain attracts thousands of visitors every year, keen to explore the natural weathered formations that line the shores of the Murchison River. The golden age of river trade remains alive these days in the historic northern Victorian township of Auka. In the 19th century, paddle steamers carried wool and wheat up and down the river to Auka, the closest river town to the Victorian capital of Melbourne, with steam trains connecting the two settlements. These days, much of 19th century Auka remains as it was 1.5 centuries ago, with an historic precinct dedicated to preserving the township of old. The bustling port of Auka is these days recognised as one of Australia's historic icons, with the waterfront area a living museum, with relics like steam trains standing gracefully on the foreshores. For those visitors intent on living history even further afield, many of the paddle steamers take trips up and down the Murray River. The Emmy-Lou is one such vessel. The majestic Emmy-Lou is one of the most recognisable and iconic paddle steamers in Australia, still powered by the steam generated by burning logs from the red gum trees that grow so prolifically along its banks. Much of the countryside it travels through remains unchanged since the days of the early white settlers. This is indeed a romantic way to travel, just the way it was in a bygone era. One of its most loved trips is upriver to the historic Perracuda station, first built in 1843. This 9-bedroom homestead sits right on the banks of the Murray River, welcoming visitors intent on experiencing life from a more leisurely age. The Victorian Alps is a true wilderness region. Thick forests of eucalyptus trees cover its rugged mountains, located on the eastern fringe of the state bordering New South Wales. It's challenging terrain, with only the toughest of four-wheel drive vehicles hardy enough to traverse its steep tracks. We're following one such expedition vehicle as it explores this Victorian high country so high it's often shrouded in clouds. Along the ridges, the tracks have been graded, with endless forests of eucalyptus trees lining either side. That is, until the track plunges downwards, a seemingly vertical drop to yet another challenge ahead. Obstacles are many, like rivers that need to be crossed. That also means a delightful place to stop for a barbecue or to skip a stone. It's a territory so isolated that one can go days without encountering another person. As the river meanders through the valleys, the tracks follow alongside, leading one to isolated rural properties. Further downstream, the travellers find yet another secluded riverside retreat to light a fire and take in the quiet bush solitude. And then it's upwards once again. This time climbing a ridge known as Billy Goat's Bluff. Undoubtedly, the person who gave it that name was thinking of the mountain climbing abilities of billy goats. The Victorian Alps are part of Australia's Great Dividing Range, a wilderness region that appeals to the more adventurous traveller. Those rivers that the tracks have been following lead into one of the major catchment dams that supplies drinking water to the residents of the Victorian capital of Melbourne. This is Thomson Dam, the largest of Melbourne's reservoirs, supplying 2/3 of the capital's water. Very occasionally in this Victorian high country, there are small settlements. Aberfeldy, boasting only one full-time resident. And Woods Point, an historic gold mining town that has been devastated by bushfires. The Victorian Alps, wild and remote, a wilderness region few Aussies ever get to explore. For the past century and a half, the Mornington Peninsula has been a place of escape for the holidaying residents of Australia's second largest city, Melbourne. Paddle wheelers once carried them to this, the Mornington Pier. And what they may have travelled onto are the now iconic rainbow-coloured bathing boxes that line many of the beaches here. These are in high demand, have been passed down from generation to generation. Wine lovers amongst travellers will be delighted by the vineyards planted right down to the sea here in the Mornington Peninsula. Australia has a rich history of viticulture stretching back over more than 200 years. Stunning sea views here, with good views from the cellar doors. Big Bowl Shiraz is the favourite wine from this region. In a land rich in old vines and multi-generational wine making, the nearby Yarra Valley of Victoria stands prominent. It is a peaceful setting, a lush land where mobs of eastern grey kangaroos come to graze. Further west in the Adelaide Hills of South Australia, the vines are ready to be picked. These hills hold the mantle as the home of modern Australian Chardonnay. The elevation and consequent cooler climate making growing conditions ideal. Teams of pickers are on the job, hand-picking a crop that has been maturing over summer. With the bins full, tractors move in for the hard lifting, off to the processing sheds for the job of transforming these grapes into the wines this region is so renowned for. Another highly acclaimed wine region further south is McLaren Vale. Set off by this building, the Darrenberg Cube. This 5-storey building has the optical illusion of floating in a vineyard. Finally, for seemingly endless crops of grapes, there's the acknowledged wine capital of Australia, the Barossa Valley of South Australia. Blessed with vineyards that stretch to the horizon and beyond, the Barossa boasts a wine-growing history going back to the 1840s. The vineyards of Australia, another dimension to this rich land. One image from Australia's rural sector is truly heartbreaking. The visible effects of drought. Rising temperatures and little rain have had a devastating impact on much of the country. In fact, it is Australia's worst drought on record. Waterholes once full and overflowing are almost bone dry. Fields once lush and green are parched and cracked. Many farmers are simply walking off the land, abandoning their farms. Such is the water crisis, they're calling it Day Zero. Failing crops, severe water shortages and livestock struggling to survive means farmers are in dire need of help. Relief has been coming in many forms. One group of volunteers has been organising the delivery of bulk loads of hay. Supplies of hay have been hard to find in drought-stricken eastern Australia, leaving members of the Rapid Relief Team to source it elsewhere. From Bridport, Tasmania, this ship, the Matthew Flinders, has been chartered full of hay. It's being ferried across Bass Strait for the long and rough journey to the mainland. Other road trains are loaded up in Western Australia for the long haul across the continent. Together, they form a convoy, 70 road trains carrying 6,000 hay bales. The journey itself takes the drivers through some of Australia's harshest outback. They'll travel for 5 days to complete this journey. Almost 4,000 kilometres from one side of Australia to the other, as part of a campaign which has raised more than $3 million to help farmers most in need. Through rural towns they roll. This one, Condobolin, in central New South Wales, is one of the hardest hit districts. Nearby, they come to a halt on one single property to unload. Together, it's a formidable spectacle. 22 fully laden road trains gathered together. 2,000 tonnes of hay ready to be sent out. Unloading the hay comes next. The bales are stacked high and wide, a life-saving vision for the surrounding farmers about to collect them. The supply chain goes into the next stage. Loan trucks and semis loaded up and sent to individual properties. With the sheep close to starving, these relief supplies are welcome. The effort to feed them has paid off. Deep in the Pacific lies an island that is even further off the Australian mainland than Lord Howe Island. This is Norfolk Island. Like one big lush green farm sitting all alone out in the middle of the ocean. This is one of Australia's external territories, one of Australia's most isolated communities. One of the distinguishing features here are the Norfolk pine trees which grow right down to the waterline. Vast forests of Norfolk pines blanket Norfolk Island. Surrounding the island, beautiful coral reefs. This reef in Slaughter Bay provides an ideal sailing platform for windsurfers. The strong Pacific winds that buffet the island create ideal conditions for these bulls. World record speeds in excess of 50 knots have been recorded in World Championships. The windsurfers at Norfolk Island reach speeds close to that. Norfolk Island has certainly seen its share of varied sailing craft over the centuries. First came the Polynesian settlers, who, archaeologists believe, lived here somewhere between the 12th and 15th centuries, then mysteriously vanished. Next came the British, who settled here in 1788, only 6 weeks after the first fleet arrived from Britain in Sydney. Their elaborate colonial buildings still stand to this day. At the time of settlement, Britain was facing a war of independence with America and was short on flax and timber, both of which were in abundant supply on Norfolk Island. There followed a colony of the hardest of criminals from Australia. When they departed, the entire population of Pitcairn Island, 194 men, women and children, were relocated here in 1856. Today, their descendants still populate Norfolk Island, celebrating their unique culture and language once a year, with a reenactment and parade on what is known as Bounty Day, the anniversary of the original landing, June 8, 1856. Of Norfolk Island's 1,700 residents, more than a third are descendants of the Pitcairn Islanders, themselves descendants of the famous mutiny on the Bounty. Extraordinarily beautiful, with a unique culture, Norfolk Island lives up to its reputation. A stunning outcrop in the midst of the Pacific Ocean.